Ah, and I am back, y'all. Hey, Miss Kia. Welcome, 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 welcome to Sister Talk with Valerie. And I am your host and your chocolate smoothie, Valerie McAllister. I have been on hiatus, but I am very happy to be back and with a new season, with a new energy, with a new love. I have a special guest tonight who is a new author. She is also my daughter, Kia Kelly, but she has actually authored 2 books in the last, my goodness, in the last couple of months. She was really like grinding them out. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for those who are out there watching Sister Talk with Valerie with your chocolate smoothie. This is brought to you by Armstrong International Media, AIM for the collective and for the culture, and also for Untapped Music Radio. And tonight we want to dedicate this particular interview to my late brother-in-law, Mr. Frank DJ Get Loose Hatchet, because this segment is about love and because he was all about love and because we want to honor him tonight. We want to honor him always. So let's get started. So I told you that my daughter Kia, she authored a couple of books. The first book is, what's the name of the first book, Kia?
The first book is I Am My Thoughts.
I Am My Thoughts. And I want you guys to, when you get a chance, she has it up to really read through that. I read through that. If you have children, if you're an educator, it's a great book. But tonight, we are going to talk about A Love Like Child's Play and Other Narratives to Rewrite Love. So I'm going to tell y'all something. If you don't have this book, you need to get it. I read this book and I cried and I thought, and when I read the book, it was not like I was reading a book that my daughter wrote, but I was reading a award-winning novel. It made me think, question, sort of phrase everything that I thought about love. I want to read you a couple of passages, but before I even get started, I want to reintroduce you to who is now author Kia Reed and welcome you.
Thank you,
I want you to
Mommy.
give folks a little background. Like, this is an unusual title, A Love Like Child's Play and Other Narratives to Rewrite for Love. Like, where did the title come from? Where did the content of the book comes from? Hey, my sister Terry. Hey, Terry.
Well, first, I want to say thank you for having me as you launch or relaunch Sister Talk with Valerie. I love being with the chocolate smoothie and having our conversations. I'm so excited to be here this evening. And I think it's so great. I love that you do this. It's awesome. So, I love like Child's Play. I came on before the book was published, and you actually were very instrumental in getting me to go ahead and make sure I published the book. You and Miss Terry, my friend Derek, people who just kept saying, "Do it, do it, do it." But the book is "A Love Like Child's Play." The title means sometimes or often we get our ideas about love from the imaginations or from the things that we kind of gather in from the outside world, usually during our childhood. And oftentimes we're trying, just like we play with Barbies or play with toys or have these imaginations based on what we see on television or see from our parents, we try to reconstruct those images in our own love lives. And sometimes or oftentimes is very hindering to us having authentic experiences in love or receiving love or even having the ability to give love. So I feel like these narratives, as I call them, need to be rewritten so that we can experience love authentically, so that we can receive love and give love in a different way without those scripts that we absolve or say, this is how love has to be, or this is what love is, but really just examining those stories that we tell ourselves.
Well, until I read this, I thought, okay, yeah, I know what love is. But it not only does it take you through, you really share some very transparent events in your life in this book. And at the end of, you start each chapter with a Bible verse, and you end chapters with sort of an activity that the reader can sort of partake in so that they are sort of changing their narratives. How did you come up with that?
I feel like me examining what love is for me was a journey, and I didn't want to write a book and not experience that journey myself in an authentic way. So, the activities that I put forward are things that I personally did to examine love. I really prayed to God to ask Him to help me to deliver a message about love in a way that He has created love, in the way that He has meant for love to be. So I really was I was wanting to make sure that the scriptures that I put forth were something that were um divine and that were messaged from God, and that would give people an idea of love that was removed from what has been popularized, or what has been kind of just accepted as a norm, and really say, okay, well, if God is saying that love is this and it's so different from what we've come to experience and see around us, then what would it be like if we were trying to um, rewrite what we've learned and embrace what God has given us or shown us about love? And I wanted it to be interactive. I wanted it to be a journey. I wanted it to be something where you're not just hearing me talk, because I'm not an expert about love, but I just have some questions that I think, when posed, can help you to examine what's at the core of what we're experiencing in relationships, at least to begin to work through and re-examine and redefine. Um, and I don't think you have to be an expert to kind of work at that questioning, because it's a journey for me as well. So the activities were a part of me wanting to have this to be a self exploration journey. And then the scriptures are because I wanted to be closely aligned to my faith and aligned to what I feel God says about love.
So I have tagged all through this book so many things, but I want to start with the forward and read. Um, and it starts with Proverbs 4:23. Keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flows the springs of life. And then I'm gonna kind of go down, like at the end of this, you give your own little quotes, and I love that. And this one says, guarding the heart with vigilance includes examination and reflection on those things which have been planted and live in the heart. If left unchecked, if not dug up, those things planted long ago will flood our lives and mix in with all of our experiences. As the scripture from Proverbs 4:23 states, out of the heart flows the issues of life. What narratives about love are planted in your heart? And how are those narratives impacting how you give, receive, and experience love? Just the beginning of that I thought was so impactful. I love that it makes you think about what narratives did I receive about love? Like, how did I learn what love is, and who taught me? Like, what did I see that said that is love?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I also want to go on to read the beginning of the first chapter that says, I've lived a lifetime in search of love, always a hopeless romantic, the topic of interest that has ignited a fire in me like no other is the topic of love. This book is based on the reflection of my journey towards love, an invitation to you to embark on a similar journey. If you're in a place where you feel that you're on the verge of great change, if you're in a place where you have a strong desire to experience love, give love, and receive love, this book is a confirmation of the purpose of your journey. This book is both personal testimony and a workbook to inspire the reimaging, reimagining, and redefining of the narratives that we tell ourselves that can hinder us from experiencing, giving, and receiving love. It is a hope that this will awaken your love journey with a paradigm shift on how you experience, receive, and give love towards healthier relationships. With an open mind and a willingness to unlearn the narratives we've learned about love, we can move towards experiencing, receiving, and giving purpose filled, healthy, and life affirming love, starting with love of oneself. That's the most powerful love. When I opened up, I said that I was dedicating this show to my brother in law because for me, he really embodied love. And when I watched him and my sister's love story and watched the change in her, and this book sort of supports that. It was a change, one in self love, it was a change in how she loved God, how she received love from God, and then how they received love from each other. So they both had this relationship with God, and they both had come to a place where they were loving themselves. And then they gave this unconditional, powerful love to each other. So I wanted you to talk a little bit about this is not just a book about love for another, partner, opposite sex. This is about self-love, and this is about a relationship with your spiritual father, your belief in a higher power. Can you talk a little bit about how you sort of integrated those three things? And you did it so well, but what were you thinking when you were beginning that?
Well, you know my journey. I've been single for a long time, and for a long time of that journey, my attention and my focus was focused on finding this ideal partner. And the last couple of years, it's really been about loving myself. So when I used to write journals to my future spouse, and in the journals, I noticed a change or a shift start to happen where the focus was more so on me really acknowledging who God has been in my life, in the relationship that we have, and the gratefulness that I have towards Him. But it was also like an appreciation for who I am. Like you talk about the love that Uncle Frank showed to Aunt Terry. You can only show that type of love to someone when you really have an understanding of loving yourself. Like we have all these flaws and these insecurities and these things that hinder us in being vulnerable and being transparent in relationship with others because we are afraid that others will see those ugly parts of ourselves. But really and truly, if we're able to love hard and love ourselves through that ugliness that we know is a part of who we are, then we are able to love others genuinely and authentically through their own ugliness as well. And I think if we've never taken the journey to love ourselves completely, it's to me it's impossible to love someone else completely, because it's almost like you're idolizing this person or seeing them in a way that's not human. You're like, oh, this person is this image or this ideal, but not a real person. But when you understand that, hey, I can have these insecurities, I can have these things that I don't necessarily like about myself and still rock with me, still be good with me, still love on myself, then when you meet someone else, you have more grace for them as you've been able to show for yourself. So I at first, I would always hate to hear people say you have to love yourself first and then you'll find the love. And I'm like, I don't want to hear that. Okay, I'm good with me. I love myself. Now let me bring somebody else in who can enjoy all this with me. But it's really true. It's something that I was kind of, and I say that in the book, I was tired of hearing. I was tired of hearing you have to love yourself before you can love anyone else. And I was just ready to be in this relationship that I imagined that would make things better in my life. But it is really true, and it is something that is worthwhile the journey, because it makes you much more powerful, much more capable of showing up and exhibiting that love to anyone else, not just a significant other, but to your family members, to your colleagues, to anyone you come into contact with. One of the things I'll talk about in the book is that abundance of love that you cultivate in yourself overflows. It overflows, and it helps you to be able to spread that to other people around you.
It is very true, but it's not always easy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so like even you say in the book, you say that when you first, wait, I want to make sure I have the right one, about how you was looking for this fine, tall, the journey towards loving yourself begins with the journey towards love begins with loving yourself. I didn't always want to start there. I wanted to be loved the way I imagined. And I wanted that love from an external source as soon as possible. More specifically, I wanted a fine, tall, chocolate man to blaze into my life and sweep me off of my feet with all the love that I've ever desired. Honestly, hearing the popular and often cliche rhetoric about self-love sickened me. You have to love yourself, and you talk about that. But then something happened, right? Something happened in your life. I love how you started this journey as um, writing sort of letters to the love of your life that you had never met, that God had for you. And you had all of these books and all of these journals that were letters to the person who was going to come into your life. And I remember you saying, Mom, I've been writing, like I have about 4 or 5 journals. Mm-hmm. And then something happened, and I don't even remember when it happened, when you said, this is going to be something else. Like, this is not going to be those journals to my betrothed that I will meet someday. So what was it after all of those journals that said, no, this is something else?
I think a part of it was I wanted the journals. I was hesitant because I wanted some of the journals to be private and really be for that love. And also because I felt like what was worthwhile to put out to other people, men or women, was a transparent look at the journey that I've been through. Because I feel like my journey has been worthwhile. It's been purposeful. And I know there are a lot of people who are struggling right now, challenged in relationships, lonely, feeling depressed, feeling like hopeless in terms of what love is or finding love. And I wanted to share my journey so that people can regain that hope, and most importantly, so that they could see that they were worthwhile giving, experiencing, and receiving love the way God intended for us to receive and give and experience love. And it just kind of evolved from like that personal, just as my journals evolved, what I wanted to share and what I felt the purpose was evolved. And so that's what kind of changed my direction in writing the book.
And when you talk about love, like I love the story of the Samaritan woman, right? And you say, for those who don't know the story of the Samaritan woman, she was the woman who Jesus met at the well. She was a woman who had several husbands. She was living with some dude who wasn't her husband. I can imagine her being tired, like she had to go get some water. Like, dude ain't even helping me get no water. I got to still go get he ain't my husband, but he's a man. You know, he's warming my bed. And then she meets this Jesus dude, another man, sitting there having conversation with her. He ain't even supposed to be talking to her.
Right.
She's a Samaritan woman. And he's like, what up, though?
Exactly.
And she like, what?
Yeah.
So the Samaritan woman, Jesus helps her to understand that, number one, he knew all about her. He still loved her, and he thought her worthy to have conversation with. That's really sort of the bottom line. But when you talk about the Samaritan woman, when you say, like myself, She did not think she was worthy enough to encounter the goodness of Jesus. Her thoughts of who she was followed her through 6 relationships, a pattern revealed to her during her encounter with Jesus at the well. Jesus revealed a pattern in the woman's thinking, which manifested in her experiences. So
Mm.
that's back to as a man thinketh, so is he. But what happens when we think that we are not enough? What are the consequences of thinking that we are unlovable, unworthy, incapable of giving or receiving or experiencing love? Even more, who or what do we become when we think we are unworthy of love? Who are we absent of love? Beyond what we think about ourselves, our thoughts about love shapes our experiences with love. And I think that's where I know, I can only speak for myself. There was a time when, because of my narratives that I was taught about love, I thought the reason why I haven't found a good relationship is because I must be unworthy of love.
Mm.
Get back to that point, like, what am I doing? Like, this is a pattern, it's happened over and over. What is it that I'm bringing? Not realizing, looking for, because, we can sometimes select the same people in
Mm.
different bodies,
Mm-hmm.
and we begin to wonder what's that about. In that journey towards trying to figure out why you're having challenges in relationships, and also trying to sort of drown out those unworthy feelings, what is the work that has to be done? Because you're right, it shows up in every place, no matter
Mm-hmm.
how much we think we might be hiding it. Something that we've been told or something we believe about ourselves not being worthy really begins to play out in how we navigate not just love relationships, but other relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, and that's part of why I was examining the scripture in that way, because what I feel like Jesus offered to the woman was non-judgment. It's like unconditional love and non-judgment, and removing what everyone else in society says to really get down to, let's have this conversation. Let's have this one-on-one intimate conversation. And I believe it's probably the first man that ever did that with her. And it wasn't like, I'm trying to get something from you. I want to have sex with you. Like, so that in itself just blew her mind in terms of the narratives that she told herself, because the norms, or the social norms, especially at that time, were thick. Like, he was not to talk to her. A lot of people looked down on her. He wasn't supposed to, but here he was, like, let's talk about what's going on. And I feel like that alone, realizing that God has a love for you that is without the judgments of the world, and it's with a forgiveness and with a grace, that I started to realize that I can have a grace for myself, and I can have a new story, and I can have a new narrative. And it doesn't have to be drenched in anything I've done in my past. And I don't have to keep on dating that same person or encountering that same person that I've accepted before. And I am worthwhile, like I say in the book, because God did first love me and be intimate with me and walk with me and talk with me and spend time with me and show up in those little areas that I would feel like, well, what are you doing? Or why do you even care about this little thing about me? But you do. So embracing that love from God helped me to see my worth, and helped me start to change how it is that I carry myself, and start to change how I view my worth. And that's not something that is an easy overnight, like, oh, I'm the whatever now. I feel like it's a daily thing, and it's actionable. It's something that's action driven. So loving myself and feeling like I'm worthwhile now looks like, okay, well, I want to get up earlier in the morning and go walk on a treadmill at 5:30 or at 5, and at least spend 15 minutes on the treadmill, because I love my body, I love myself. And you think about having a partner in your life, there are some sacrifices that you would have to make to show that love to them. There's that going out of your way in a way that you wouldn't normally to sacrifice and show love. God has shown us the ultimate sacrifice, and we have to sacrifice to show that love to ourselves as well, and be diligent in that, and know that we're worth getting up a little extra earlier to love on our bodies, and pray and meditate and do all the things that are loving and gentle and kind. I always tell my daughters, like, you have to live in your own mind. So be kind to yourself. Like, you have to live in that space. So be kind and watch what you're saying to yourself. Watch what you're accepting as a thought in your own mind. Because what you think about yourself is what you will exhibit or how you'll walk. And it will impact every area of your life. So, yeah, I
I
think that
like
was some of
that.
the work.
I like one of the activities that you have is to list the identities that you feel make you less than desirable and not worth love. And then you counter every socially constructive constructed false narrative that ever made you feel worthless. So you do an activity where you says I am, and then on the other side you say I am also. So, for example, you give an example: I am plus size. I am also lovable, desirable, and worthy of self love and romantic love. I am a Black woman. I am also loving, giving, soft, fragile, vulnerable, and as well as strong. I am a single mother. I am also worthy to be pursued and able to assert a standard of purity in my intimate relationships. I love that. And so it goes on and on, that you force the reader to kind of look at not just the narratives that they have said about themselves that are negative, but also to rewrite those narratives and replace them with something positive. Because you also say you need to describe why. Well, there's the rating. There's also one that's a rating from 1 to 10, um, in terms of who is the least. Oh, I love this. Who's the least to be worthy of to be loved, and then describe why. I love that activity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you list a bunch of things and you say who shouldn't be loved, or who's least worthy to be loved, and then you have to rate them from 1 to 10. So like, from 1 to 10, describe why you chose the rating. So for example, you put plus size opinionated Black woman, 20-year-old attractive college educated woman, a doctor who gives to charities and homeless people, a student who has just graduated from college, a newborn baby, a rich white man, a 13-year-old Black girl who aspires to be a model, a man who has just committed several crimes and is facing a prison sentence, a pastor or a religious official. So why that activity? That the person, we then as the reader has to rate who is more worthy of love based on how you describe the person.
Because I think that we don't realize that we assess ourselves based on what society says is valuable and worthwhile. And God sacrificed and died for all of us, every single person on that list. But what we tend to do is just like we assess people as more worthwhile if they have a certain material or monetary value, like if they have a certain amount of money, if they're from a certain social class, we tend to say those people are more worthwhile. Well, if we're saying they're more worthwhile, then we're also saying they're more worthwhile to have love. And so when we see healthy relationships, a lot of times in certain communities, what people will say is those healthy relationships are only for people who fit in this worthwhile category. So, which means just being transparent about it. That means right. That means with money. So a lot of times we'll embrace certain dysfunctions or traumas or hurts and equate it to that means that we're not worthy of love. And no, we have to like dismantle our rating systems for worth, because we're assigning not only monetary value and assigning wealth status to people, but we're also assigning what they are capable of or worthwhile of. And it's something that we don't have discussions about, but it's like, who's at the bottom of that totem pole at the end of the day when we're thinking by the societal value? Black single mothers. And I know people will argue about that, and it's not about trying to argue with who has it worse than other people. It's just a look at how we evaluate and assess people and determine their worth and their value, and therefore determine what they are they should receive. And that's across the board: support, love, equitable access to things. And my view on it in this book is about love. And thinking spiritually, and letting my faith lead. Everyone is deserving of love, no matter who they are or what walk of life that they come from. And I feel like if we embrace people that way or embrace ourselves that way, we'll open ourselves up to receiving love, but then we'll also be able to share that love with everyone.
That's so true. That's so true. Not only do we assess value on people, we assess value on ourselves, which often hinders us from receiving all that I believe God wants us to be worthy of. Even like we will announce this later on, but our family is about to close on 44 acres of land. And I remember having conversations with my sister who has been having this as a belief for years. And when she first told me, I'm like, I love her and I'm going to believe and have faith because she believes it. But I couldn't think that big for me. For us, I couldn't think that big. Why would we be deserving of 44 acres of land? Like, we're not rich. Like, God's not going to do that for us. Those narratives played in my head. It would be great. I'd be happy with just give me a little half an acre house. I'm good. I felt like my sister's tripping, but good for her because she got faith. But she was steadfast, and not just in her belief in God, but also in her belief in what God could do, and her belief in what she was worthy of. You know what I'm saying? Not in a way that was, braggadocious, but this is God. And yes, I'm worthy of this. And yes, we are worthy of this. And yes, we can do this. But it took me because I'm so practical sometimes. And that's the other piece of love and love with God, because sometimes I know for me, the things that I could not achieve in my own strength took me to another place. Like now, I am in this place where I'm, a little disabled. I have limited mobility. And so that said something to me for a while about me and my abilities, how much I was worth, because I can't get around like I used to and do what I want to do. Da, 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 da. So we do assign certain things to ourselves. On that list could have been disabled. Are you worthy of love? Because you're not as mobile as other people. Those kind of things. So I love that, Kia Kelly. Now I want to kind of switch gears and really talk about potentially a sensitive subject. It's in the book, but when I read this, I'm your mother, so it really took me to a place, right? You talk about being molested as a young child and how that impacted the narrative you had about love and the narrative that you had about connections and the narratives that you had about what you were worthy of or what you believed. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I feel like, okay, so it was hard to talk about, but like the children's book that I wrote about metacognitive thinking, A part of changing the narratives that we accept about love are really examining how we think. Again, as a man thinks, so is he. So I had to sit down and just write down my thinking and start with, why did I feel like I was unworthy of love? And just really let whatever thoughts came to mind or emotions came up, let them come out and write them down. And one of the things that came up for me was being molested as a child, in terms of what is behind me thinking that I'm not worthy. And it wasn't just being molested, but it was the situation that happened around it, like it being a family member, it being in someone's household, and them having this, from the outside looking in, this proper, um, middle class, big, huge house, more than we had, material wise, having a daughter of their own and having her have this beautiful room, and me being there because it was easier for me to get to school living with them since we were newly moved to Georgia. Me living in that home and seeing them separate their daughter and what she was given or how she was treated from me, down to me feeling like I was placed in a position to be molested by my uncle, was something that I didn't realize had impacted me the way that it had. And for years, I would see people who were molested or tell their stories, and I was like, oh, I feel so bad for them that they weren't able to overcome that. Like, it really impacted them, and feel like, oh, well, that impacted them, but I'm good. It didn't really have a bad effect on me because I've been able to have this career and do this and that, and I don't think about it all the time, and I feel like I'm relatively happy. So I didn't understand the way that it impacted my self-worth. I didn't understand that how it impacted my view of myself sexually, my view of myself in terms of relationships with men. So I'm thankful to God that when I started on this journey and I examined my thinking and really get down deep into what drives me or motivates me, or how I assign my self worth, that was something I had to grapple with. And I'm not saying like, oh, I just cured myself. It it was eye opening to see that it did impact me, and it did traumatize me, and it did hurt me. And I don't feel like I ever gave language to that or voice to that in my life, because I didn't feel like a victim. I didn't feel like it had impacted me in the way that it did. But I understood that I needed to be transparent in this journey, and not only my story of being a child who was molested, and really unpacking that stream of thought for other, could be freeing for other people. And so that's why I wanted to just put it in the book and write about it. And not only that, I wanted to show that I didn't just stop in that event, but I was able to gain perspective on how I should view those people who victimized me, who did this to me, and able to forgive them, and really ask God to help me with forgiveness. And truly, because I always think, I've forgiven everybody I need to forgive, so I'm good. But sometimes there are things that are deep within us that we just push away because we feel like, oh, good, we don't need to deal with it. Why deal with it? Why go through it? Why talk about it? And what I feel like the value in unearthing things that have hurt us or traumatized us is to understand ourselves better, understand how we are impacted by those things, and claim power over those things, and to help rewrite narratives about what those narratives created. Because what that narrative created was that I wasn't worthwhile, was that my body was to be used as an object sexually, that I wasn't a precious daughter. And I feel like God was revealing to me that I am his precious daughter, and that I can claim that and rewrite that narrative for myself. And that these people, or this person, was perverted. And I'm not just talking about like in a sexual sense, but people are perverted in terms of being removed from what God's intentions are for how we are to treat one another on earth. And so I'm glad that I wrote about it because it helped me to realize some things about myself and the way I viewed my experiences.
Yeah. You kind of you take back your power in your language, in your words, because you talk about how it impacted you, and you even not just the molestation of your uncle, but his wife who put you in that position, and then you say, as a 7-year old child, a 6-year old child, what kind of people, how small can you be that you would, sacrifice this child, like almost like to the point of where you feel sorry for those people, because for them to do that to you, to make you feel so unworthy, to do that to a child, what kind of people are you? And so it almost brings you back to power. Then you start speaking over yourself. I am beautifully and wonderfully made. I am a child of God. So you counteract that negative experience, and you do it not so very gently and very classic, like as you sort of weave it and wove it through the book. It's almost like as you are writing the words, I could feel you being more and more empowered as you're writing the words.
Yeah, that's actually what happened. Like I didn't say, "Oh, this is what I'm going to write." I was going through that as I was writing. I was allowing that practice of metacognitive thinking, that practice of writing what comes to mind and thinking about my thinking. I was in action doing that while I was writing the book, and really just allowing myself to be transparent with whatever came up. And that's what came up.
I love that. Um, that was a big that wasn't easy to read, because again, as your mother, then I go back, then I begin to say, oh my God, you didn't protect your child. Then I'm like, you're a terrible mother. So then I'm tagging all the negative narratives in my head and mind as I'm reading it. And then I say, okay, wait, stop, Valerie. She had the courage to write this, and to really show, as you are modeling even for the reader, how you transform your mind. And so I am so proud of her. This is about her. It's not about, you reliving you did the best you could. This is about her. This is about her healing. I just felt so proud of you that you were that transparent, and I could see sort of even in the wording how you were being healed. And one of the other things you said about that was that caused you to you had to question that you had these sexual attractions towards men or energy, but not an emotional connection.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's deep that you were even able to tap into that wow, I really don't have I haven't had emotional connections, but I've had this sort of sexual attraction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was very easy for me to create a sexual bond with men. Well, sex is easy. It's just not for everyone. It's not easy for everyone. In terms of, it's not like I'm not going to take for granted that it is not the same for everyone. But for me, what I found was that it was easy for me to be in this free um sexual experience, like with men. But when I looked at it, I didn't have any emotional bond to them. And a lot of times men feel like, oh, women, they get emotionally attached, and men can separate emotions from sex. And not me. Like I felt like I could, and that wasn't a good thing. I could connect with men sexually. I could share myself in that way, but emotionally I wasn't. And then it goes back to examining a lot of women I hear. And I said, I just speak for myself. I was finding myself in relationships with men who were emotionally unavailable, not emotionally aware. Um, But those relationships were good for me because it meant that I didn't have to be emotionally aware or available. I could reserve a part of myself from them. And yes, I got angry and I wanted my partners to speak to me more, talk to me more, share more. That's what I said I wanted. That's what I argued with them about. But I knew that that's not what I was going to receive in that situation deep down. And there was almost a comfort because I didn't have to unearth any of my insecurities. I didn't really have to be vulnerable. I could exist in this surface level relationship and not really dig deep with this person because they weren't asking for that. They weren't available. They couldn't give that to me. And the truth of the matter is I know that if I was able to enter into those relationships with those people in that way is because I was the same, not emotionally aware, not emotionally available, and in some way not able to give a vulnerability. So yeah, TV says you're supposed to talk and communicate, and women want to talk and communicate, and that's what you hear all around you. So I was like, yeah, we need to communicate. But the truth be told, if there was a man at that time who came to me and said, okay, let's have this real conversation, I would have probably been like, what we gonna talk about? What you talking about? I wasn't saying that so that you could do what you do, which is turn away and me have to go after you and fight you, but you really ain't gonna talk because that's not, I don't really want to talk. but but no, and so yeah, I feel like a part of that did come out of me having that experience or my innocence being taken away so young sexually, so that I knew that I was that was something that I could use to attract men, that something that men were interested in, and so I could tap in there. But as far as the emotions, I had a hard time with that. And so a lot of times women say, I can't find anybody, this, that, third, or I keep running to the same guy. Or men might say the same thing. Oftentimes it's a reflection of where we are mentally and emotionally.
That's so true. That's so true. That's just like finding the same man in a different vessel, but with the same behaviors, and thinking, why do I keep whether it be male, female, whatever, why do I keep ending up with the same type of partner? That's about us more than it's about anything else. I want to spend a little while. Wow, this has been so great. We're almost at time, but one of the things that you really look at is, where did I get my sort of narratives about love? And you sort of paint this picture of being this little girl that used to sit under the table and listen to like me and your aunts, and I love one of the things as you're talking about that and describing that, it kind of took me back. You like, yeah, I listen to him talking about, girl, he did such and such, and we would just be, me and your aunts, we'd be just going through our whole, because back in the day we thought we was all that, and we had all the men. But then you bring it back, you say, it's without me, saying it verbatim, you're like, my mom was like, well, I was 17 when I had you, and you're like, here's this 19, 20-year-old women who this is where I'm getting my notion about love. They don't know nothing about love. And that is so true. We were children. Like I was actually a baby when I had you. You were 17, and my sisters, I'm the oldest girl, so they were even younger. So back then, even when we were 19, 20, we had no idea, no knowledge about what love is, only the narratives that we had created by sitting under tables and listening to our moms and stuff, talk about their little stuff. And so I thought it was very interesting that you related all of that back to, like, where do we even get these narratives about love? Like, most of the time, we don't know. Whoever we got them from didn't know what they were talking about either.
Yeah, I mean, that's so real. Like, I read this article or something about traditions and how they're passed on, and this family would make this roast and they would cut the ends of it off. I think it was a roast, and they would put it in the pan and cook it, and they did it for years. And so the daughter said, Mom, why do we always cut the ends off the roast? Because she was cutting the ends off hers. She was like, Oh, well, my mama did that because her pan was broke or it was too small. So they had to cut the ends off to fit the roast inside. She's like, oh, I've been doing this for years thinking we have to do this. But it was just something that was born out of the necessity of that time. And so when I'm thinking about like, you and my aunt sitting around talking about men are dogs and da 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 and all of that. And I'm thinking, okay, put context around what was really going on at that time for you all, losing your mom, having being very young and inexperienced in relationships. It's like you said, you didn't know what you didn't know. But for me growing up, what carried over until I had my son was the idea that men were dogs, that they were no good, that they couldn't be trusted, that they would lie, that they would cheat or whatever. And when I had my son and looking at his innocence and looking at his beauty, I said, I will never talk about men that way in front of him or around, or I don't even want it around him because he's a male and I don't want him to absorb that thinking about that's who he is. So it was then that I stopped that language and started to rethink how I view men, because I was raising a man and he is like the greatest fella I know. But I just had to examine that and think about, okay, well, where does this come from? Because oftentimes we just hear so many things about what love is supposed to be. We hear so many things about who men are and what they're supposed to be, who women are and what they're supposed to be. We listen to arguments with our parents. We listen to fairy tales on Disney. And then we just, with all of that mixed in, we just create this notion of love and really don't define it for ourselves or experience it in an authentic way for ourselves. So yeah, I think it's something that we should kind of examine and analyze a little bit more as we are experiencing it. And I think that would help us to take all these hindrances and blocks off of it and experience it in a new way.
Yeah. Even when I remember when the first draft that you wrote and you included it in here, and it's even on the front of your book as the art. This is called A Love Like Child's Play and Other Narratives to Rewrite for Love. It is by Kia Reed, and if you're interested, I have copies. It is also on Amazon.com. If you send me an IM, I can send you copies. We'd rather you buy them from us because Amazon does a lot for the author's royalties, but get it. But one of the things I was going to say is on the front of the book, it has a picture of Barbie and Ken, and Kia makes reference to sort of when she was little and how she, I guess the background is not letting it come out. But she talks about how she used to play with her Barbie. I don't know what Ken was doing. And how, creating this whole story about this is what love is. Me and Ken, we're gonna live happily ever after. And that's just that is a love like child's play, because we create these things. I want somebody who's gonna, sweep me off my feet, and we're gonna live happily ever after. I want somebody that's big and strong like my daddy was. I don't want somebody that's an alcoholic because my daddy was. I don't want nobody who is, light skinned, because, we have all things that truly, 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 they really impact what we believe about love.
Yeah, blocks to it, and like in the book, I say how we're able to control that. Like, you hold your Ken and you're controlling everything he does. You hold your Barbie, you control her. I'm like, okay, we're gonna walk, we're gonna ride, we're gonna go to the mall. Okay, let's lay down. Okay, time to eat. And real people don't work like that. You can't have this idea of what they will do and say, and if they don't, then that means they're not exhibiting love for me, especially if you haven't communicated what it is that you need in relationship. And so I talk about in my book also about being married and wanting to go to the park with my family and wanting to have dinner every night at the table. And my ex-husband, being who he was like, just like he felt I was trying to control him. And in a sense I was, because I was trying to make this picture perfect idea of what a family should be. And when he was wasn't cooperating with that or wasn't willing to do certain things, I equated to our family as failing, you know? And so it's like sometimes we just create these narratives, especially now with social media, we create this image of what love is supposed to look like. And then if it doesn't look like this, then we're like, oh, we're not getting love. But is that really love? And are you getting what you really need? And you know, where are your ideas coming from about what it should be? And just in the book, it's just an invitation to question that and do some activities to explore it a little more. And my hope is that everyone who reads it has a different experience with love, has a deeper experience with experiencing, receiving, and giving love.
That is my hope too. Listen, if you do not have this book, A Love Like Child's Play by Kia Reed, and other narratives to rewrite, because Kia sort of challenges us to rewrite the narratives that we have about love. And this is your girl, your chocolate smoothie, Sister Talk of Valerie, and we are brought to you by Armstrong International Media for the collective and for Untapped Music Radio. We are with you every other Wednesday, except for next Wednesday, we're going to have a special show. But every other Wednesday at 7:30 on Facebook Live. So yeah, I could talk to you and talk to you and talk to you about this book, and I do want to do a part two because I'd be really interested in like sort of bringing together a group of women and sort of going through the book together, doing the workbook part, really doing the work. And you can be in any relationship. You could be single, you could be married, you could be with a partner, you could be booed up, whatever, and still do sort of these activities and this work because it's about loving yourself, it's about loving God, and it's about learning how to love others, you know, once we've taken those steps. So we are almost at time, Kia, but I want you to kind of leave the audience with something. If you could, you know, if someone, after someone reads your book, what do you want them to take away? Like, what are the maybe the two top things that you want them to take away?
That they're worthwhile, they're worth the journey of loving themselves, that God loves them, and that them being healthier and aware of the love that they have within themselves makes it better for every one of us. Like when we really embrace loving ourselves and then putting that love into the world, it's just a ripple effect throughout the world. I really and truly believe that the more healed and healthy people we have, the more people who are really loving others, it just spreads throughout the world. Just like when people are hurting and they spread that hurt to other people, the same is true if we have more people who are healed and healthy and able to spread that love. Then you're raising your children differently, you're interacting with your coworkers differently, and it just has a ripple effect, I feel like. So that you're worthwhile for the journey, that you are worthy to be loved, that you have an abundance of love already inside of you to give to the world, and that God will see to it that you are able to give, receive, and experience the love that you desire. And you said something about the limitations you put on yourself with the looking at the house with Aunt Terry and wanting a half an acre, and she's looking for all these acres. The same thing is possible for love. Like your biggest dream or imagination for how big a love could be in your life is just the beginning of the love that you can experience. So the same thing with love, we have to have that faith. Like, yeah, I'm believing God to get me this apartment. I really want it. Oh God, if I could just, because that's what I think I'm working. Okay, God will grant you that apartment and you get it in and you got mold or it's leaking and you're like, oh dang, I really would want something else. You got to believe for big, and believe for big for love too. And when you said that, it just hit me like, dang, what is my expectation of love? I don't want just a companion. I don't want just someone that I get along with. I want a real deep, soul stirring love where we have a relationship with God, where we are an example in the community, where we're able to not only love one another, but our love just reverberates around to everyone around us. And we're able to love whole communities with the love that we've created with between the two of us. So I want a big, gigantic, real love, like those acres and acres of land, that big dream that can happen if you have that faith and know that you're worth it. That's the same thing that we should think and dream for the love we want in our lives. And maybe that's why I haven't met anyone, because I had a real small vision of what I wanted. But when you just said that, it just made me think that no, I want something big.
I know that's right. And you gonna get it, baby. You gonna get that big love. It's gonna be the best son-in-law in the world. I can't wait.
Yay! Amen. Good
Amen.
father.
And
He's a
it's
good
done.
father.
Thank you all so much for being with me. Join me next Wednesday at 7:30 when my guest will be Miss Kimberly Special K. Johnson, who is a poet, who is a spoken word artist, who is an all-around great young lady who has a great story to tell. She's working on her one-woman show entitled More Than a Mom. So that is next Wednesday at 7:30. I want to thank my daughter Kia, Miss Author Kia Reed, for being with me again. Please, 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 please. This will definitely do something, feel some, what's the phrase, feel some type of way. This book will make you feel some type of way. And it is a book that will definitely help you to really look at some internal things about yourself and work to be the best person you can be and to love yourself as God loves you. Again, Sister Talk with Valerie. Yes, and her other book, I always forget the title of that
I
one.
am my thoughts. So this is for children to start them thinking metacognitively. So thinking about their thinking. It helps them to be more proactive, helps them to have a growth mindset. So cognitive thinking is powerful, and it's something that we should be teaching our children from a young age, how to think about their thinking.
All right. That's my author, baby girl. Again, Sister Talk with Valerie is brought to you by Armstrong International Media, AIM, and for Untapped Music Radio. Thank you all. Love you. Thank you for rejoining me. Tell a friend. Chocolate Smoothie is back. We don't want to miss her.
Yay! Let's
Love
go
you,
there.
Kia, and love
Love
y'all.
you too, mommy.
Y'all can do about it. I love you. Love you. Love you. Bye, babe. Thank you.
See ya. Thank you.